You're watching Ride Like a Local with Belt Drive Betty. Welcome to another episode of Ride Like a Local. Today we're going to learn what a fitty run is and speak to Traer at Hard Knocks Track Days here at the Edmonton Motorcycle Show 2019. I'm being joined right now by one of my idols, Liz Jensen. She is the author of a couple of ladies' books. Well, that's not really a couple of books written from a lady's perspective. One is her memoir, the most recent one, Crash Landing, which is centered a lot here in the province of Alberta. And then the other, of course, is women, motorcycling, and the whole road to empowerment. So, Liz, let's talk a little bit about your two books first.
Okay.
And then I want to talk about the journey to get to those two books.
Okay, so both books are inspirational. They're told from a different perspective. And the first one, because motorcycling has meant and made such a difference to me in my life, so I interviewed, in the first book, I interviewed 49 other women, and I really wanted to talk to them and have them tell stories about how motorcycling had made a difference, how pushing through your comfort zone, what that does to you, and what that opens up to other areas of your life. Sometimes some of the stories, women had strengths that they brought with them in learning to ride a motorcycle, because especially when you learn to ride, I learned to ride at 16. You're not afraid of anything. And but when you learn to ride at 50 or 55 or any of those, it's like you have a lot of things in your head about what can go wrong. So it makes it really hard to learn. So some of the women brought other lessons that they learned in other parts of their life to help them learn to ride a motorcycle. So it's a real, there's a cross-section of women, ages, riding experiences, occupations, life situations, you name it. But that common theme about, pushing through, discovering your strengths through, I won't say adversity. Some of it is adversity, but it's when you're put up against a wall and you have to do something. And it's like, oh my God, I can do that. Then what else can I do, right?
Yes.
So that's what that's about. And there's some of my story in there, but the third book that I wrote, Crash Landing, is really more. It's all my personal story. It's a memoir, and that is really. I was interested in learning more about how I was shaped by my ancestors, or who I am before I was told who I am. As I was approaching age 60, I was really curious about that. And so I needed to understand my ancestors. I was born into a Mennonite family, and my grandparents were all refugees from Russia in the 1920s. And a lot of them settled here in northern Alberta. Some started in northern Saskatchewan, but they moved around and trying to get established.
Right.
So I thought I'd try and put myself in their position as best I can so that I could understand why they taught us, why they believed, why they did the things they did. Because like it or not, or agree with it or not, those experiences are in me. So if I'm going to understand myself, I'm going to understand them better. The first time I set out to do it, I did crash. And so the title, I wouldn't have had that title had I not crashed, right?
Right.
So I had to go back 2 years later. I wasn't able to finish it until 2 years later, but then I completed that journey. I called it the Ancestor Trail, going to the places that they lived. A lot of the story of my story and their story takes place in Alberta, for sure, northern and southern, including my crash. And so that's really that whole reconnecting with my roots and understanding who I am. It was just such a powerful, amazing, life-changing journey, and not just for me, for some of my relatives as well.
Well, and this is just the thing. I think that when we can put our experiences, our life experiences, on paper and in perspective, we can impact a whole lot more people than we really truly understand. I know for myself that when I was reading your book, I was taken back to different journeys in my own life. and gone, I remember going right across Canada to go see my grandmother and spend 10 days alone with her. No mom, no aunties, just me, my grandma, so I could learn where she came from. So I think there comes a time in our lives, whether in your case, this was a journey that your soul had been calling you to take for quite a while. In my case, my journey happened in the early 80s when I was trying to discover who I was as a mother.
RiderFriendly.com combines a social business directory with content marketing. Create coupons, special offers, and events, and let us promote them for you. RiderFriendly.com, helping riders find rider-friendly businesses. Hafford, Saskatchewan, Canada's most rider-friendly community from the 2018 riding season. Located between North Battleford and Prince Albert and not far from Saskatoon, it's the perfect day ride destination. With welcoming folks and great small businesses, Hafford has everything you could need while out for a motorcycle ride. Hafford, Saskatchewan, Canada's most rider-friendly community, 2018.
Big life situations cause us to open our eyes and our hearts in ways we would never otherwise understand.
That's right. And it's those times. So even when I crashed, my bike was totaled, I was injured, I knew, first of all, that I would not stop riding. I would be going back to riding. That was just not a question. And secondly, I also knew that crash was part of my journey. So those were two things that were really important. So I had to have part of that journey that I thought I needed. I knew how I was going to do it, but I needed a different way to do it. And that was part of the lessons too. And so the crash, I mean, when I look at my ancestors' experience, the crash is metaphoric too, right? You don't have to be on a motorcycle to crash. No. There's lots of ways of crashing in life, but the lessons are all the same, and that's when we learn, and that's when I learn about their strengths and how they apply to me. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, the other thing that we learn when I read your books, and I love your writing style, it's a very down-to-earth, raw, spiritual type of writing, and that really resonates with me. And the thing that I found probably the most profound out of all of this was the connections a person can draw in their own life from somebody else's story. How do we weave stories in such a way? That kind of blew me away, that I was able to pick out things in your story in Beaver Lodge, for example. And I go, okay, I need to take a step back. And I needed to start thinking about some of those different family members, the way they impacted me. You basically pushed buttons I didn't expect to have pushed, let's put it that way.
When people read, this book has just come out, but I get feedback from women motorcycles on the road to empowerment. And everybody reads about themselves in it. It doesn't matter if they're male or female or rider or not rider. They're personal stories, and so is Crash Landing, my memoir. But there's a universal message, and so people can read there. I didn't intend it that way, but that's the feedback that I get. Yeah.
Well, and I think that comes too, though, because you are a creature of the universe. I don't think that Liz Jensen is a creature of the earth, so to speak. I think you're much bigger than that, and I think that every woman who loves to ride and every man who loves a woman that would like to ride needs to read Women, Motorcycles, and the Road to Empowerment.
Thank you. You know, it's great. And the other thing about that book is that it's not intended to get women to ride a motorcycle, because if it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't want to be riding a motorcycle. However, most people that ride it, even if they don't want to be a rider when they start reading it, they'd like to ride after they've read it. So it wasn't an intended outcome, and not everybody does that, but there's a lot of women that read it and think, maybe I'd like to try it, because they've read about other women's experiences, and maybe though they've addressed some of the fears or some of the reasons why. But yeah, they can.
Well, how can people find out a little bit more about your books? Where can they get them? And those books are going to be around for a long time because they're timeless.
They are, thank you. They can get them from my website, which is lizjansen.com. They're also widely available on any online retailer, so Amazon, Indigo, Chapters, and like I said, and they're available as ebooks too. So however you want, they're easily available.
There you go, folks. Easily available. Liz Jansen, Women, Motorcycles, and the Road to Empowerment, and Crash Landing. 2 books you need to put on your shelf right next to your bed.
Lacombe, Alberta, runner-up community in Canada's most rider-friendly community contest. Situated just off Highway 2, the city of Lacombe provides access to hundreds of kilometers of secondary highway riding, making it a natural stop when touring through central Alberta. From June to August, Wednesdays are filled with music, food, and fun at the Lacombe Memorial Centre for Music in the Park. Lacombe, Alberta, in the heart of it all. Where commerce and community meet. The staff at Community Futures, Grand Prairie and Region love helping entrepreneurs, young and old, succeed in their goals. What can we do to help you reach yours? That's our time for this week, folks. Join us next week at the 2019 edition of the Vancouver Motorcycle Show, where we learn all about the game of barns.